You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that reveals facts, truth, research, and statistics and never messes around. With your hosts, Taylor Phillips, Ed Smith, Frank Vashner, and Buck Gino. We lay down the entire truth about everything regarding your Detroit and Michigan sports teams, no matter how uncomfortable they may be. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no coddling, no pop culture, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313. Follow Frank Vashner at Frank_Vashner, VAJCNER. And follow Buck Gino on Twitter at BuckGino3rd. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
This is the Labor Day edition, episode 280 of the Week in Review in session. Taylor Phillips and Ed Smith with you guys. Ed, how was your week?
A bit long and draining due to the work schedule, so it's been quite tiring that I had the off day for this particular Labor Day. But, it gave me time to catch up, further check about what about this past weekend with our favorite sports teams. All in all, fairly good week for me. How about yourself?
Pretty good. I was busy as well. We had a Labor Day weekend of business here at Ruby Tuesday in Cadillac. Now the Labor Day hangover week approaches, meaning it's going to be slow the coming week at Ruby Tuesday. So, anyway, got college football and Lions to scour. Also, the Tigers making 2 blockbuster moves, including the trade involving Justin Verlander, which we'll analyze later on. But let's go with let's change things up a bit. Let's start off with college football, and let's start with the biggest game involving our state of Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines.
Touchdown, Michigan!
They were playing in Arlington Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys, the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, actually. And they were playing the 17th-ranked Florida Gators, and they beat them 33-17. The defense only allowed 3 points allowed on just 192 total yards, while Wilton Spate threw 2 pick sixes and 1 long touchdown pass to wide receiver Tarek Black. So the defense, like you pointed out, Ed, 2 days ago off the air, was even quicker than at any point of last season.
Yeah, it definitely was. Probably the best defense I can remember seeing in recent memory, even going back to seeing some of the teams that had great defenses like the squad last year or even the squad in 2006. Like I mentioned, while it's clear that this is a team full of young players that still need proper essentials, more experience welded into them over time. The speed and raw athleticism and quickness is clearly there. And, they found ways. Even remember, this is a team that was replaced 5 starters total from last year, only one on the defense. So for that quickly transition to, hey, you got to play this caliber of opponent on a big stage, you would think, hey, it may get to them early. But like you said, only 3 points allowed. And the only reason why Florida was in the game was of those 2 pick sixes. I'll get to that in a second, but as for the defense, I thought it showed a great job getting at the quarterback still. The front seven was completely nasty, from Mo Hurst to Rashawn Gary to Mike McCray to even Devin Bush, who could have been almost, thrown out with a possible targeting call, but it was ruled that it was not targeting. He is a junior, I believe. Great speed and quickness on him as well. I witnessed that firsthand on some of the plays they involved in. So he could be a great weapon in terms of getting to the quarterback. Another element of one of those caliber blitzes that Dow Brown likes to run in almost any situation. So he's going to be a big asset to this defense going forward, as is, like I mentioned, for the aforementioned D-line. Now for the offense, obviously it's one thing you got to get better at. It's self-inflicted wounds, the turnovers. In this case, once again, 2 more pick sixes thrown by Wilton Spade. We want to go back to the Ohio State game. That's the second straight regular season game in a row that he's done that now. That's the issue he's got to work on. Where it reflects back onto what I once mentioned of him, like during last season, sort of Jekyll and Hyde phase. He can be brilliant one drive, yet also infuriating the next. All he had was 2 pick sixes and overthrew a wide open Brandon Crawford for what would have been a walk-in touchdown. He did have that great deep bomb down Tariq Black, which was the game's first touchdown early in the game. So it shows you the signs of progress that are still there, and was the reason why this team did so well with him as a starting QB last year. So as long as he can focus on the mistakes, the self-inflicted wounds, like for instance, we talked about the interceptions, the touchdowns. One of those I won't be so harsh on it because it went off the wide receiver's hands. But the second one where he just overthrew the receiver, that was completely on him. Yeah, he was slightly pressured, but still, it's up to him to manage that throw, and that was just a bad throw. So Spade's definitely got his work cut out to finish fine-tuning those. But as long as the offense can't be making too many mistakes, because I like what we saw from the wide receivers and most especially the running backs even. I mentioned before that I think this, even though you would have lost less power up front by, with Devin Smith graduating and whatnot, you still gain more speed and quickness, I felt. And we saw that whether it was Chris Evans, from Ty Isaac, from Karan Higdon, even a little bit of stint of Eddie McDoom. Michigan, as long as, those guys stay healthy, their running back core, their rotation of backs would be quite efficient, could be a solid X factor for their offense, because I think they had about 200 yards or so almost of total rushing yards. Ty Isaac with a big chunk of those. He got a little bit dinged up, but he hope he's doing okay. Again, overall, not too much to complain about other than, just fix your turnovers, fix those mistakes. And with the way your defense is playing, you have a shot to be relatively in every game that you're playing this year. Granted, it's one game. It's a little bit of hyperbole to base, go that far of reach. But you need some type of conclusion after finally getting some type of game action in. So.
Right. This is an offense that has to get better, especially Wilton Spade. Also, John O'Corn saw some playing time, and he'll get some playing time when the Wolverines go home and play the Cincinnati Bearcats this Saturday at noon on ABC. But Wilton Spade will be named the starting quarterback.
The best case scenario would be for the team to get off more comfortable lead early against Cincinnati, getting up enough points, and then that will allow for O'Corn to come in, like say, second half or third quarter. And by the way, another thing that I forgot to touch on in terms of the offense getting better, let's not forget that because of 2 fumbles that special teams and the defense recovered, it gave Michigan ample field position for them to possibly punch in the touchdown to make this a bigger route than it was. So that's another thing they got to learn. And again, it cost them against Ohio State as well, that killer instinct to try to put a team away when they're down. They still need to touch up on that a little bit more. In fact, their defense got done for them with that last strip sack fumble that led to a touchdown. So as long as the offense, again, fine-tune more on those aspects, this would be a team that could give anybody a game on any Saturday, in my opinion.
That would be a very valid view. So, they'll be picked in the college football in the Mitten quick picks a little bit later on. But transitioning to Michigan State Spartans football.
Touchdown, MSU!
The Spartans commit 3 fumble turnovers. I think all of them by L.J. Scott, but they overcome all that and win 35-10 in East Lansing over the Bowling Green Falcons, a terrible Bowling Green Falcons team. The Spartans trailed 3-0 after one quarter and they didn't even score any points in the first quarter. But the second quarter, the rest of the game was much better, especially the second quarter. The Spartans' offense finally turned it on. The first drive of the game, Brian Lewerke was on fire. And then when they got to the 1-yard line, L.J. Scott just choked up the ball, and the Falcons took it the other way to about the 20. And they took it all the way into the red zone, and they kicked it through the uprights for the game's first 3 points. And I saw that at Ruby Tuesday while I was working. I was multitasking, and that really pissed me off. You just can't. This is a thing you just can't afford to do. But the Spartans again came back in the second quarter, starting in the second quarter, and they had very little trouble since, and came up with a win.
Yeah, it's probably like the definition of the term sloppy victory, as close as you're going to get to it. While you had some good-looking spots from Lewerke and other aspects, like you mentioned before, those 3 fumbles, those 3 turnovers, you pull that off against a team that's not, confident, that's at least somewhat confident, and not this beyond crappy Bowling Green team. You will find yourself in a much tougher hassle than what this game eventually turned out to be. So, again, MSU should be lucky that they decided to pull this crap against a far less superior team than what the normal lot would be. Otherwise, we will be having a lot of discussion on, wow, this team really is more of a mess than what we originally thought coming off of last year.
Yeah, and this is what you gotta hang on to the football. You can't afford to turn over like that, especially on the ground, like L.J. Scott did. But that goes for the rest of the running backs department as well. Not just L.J. Scott, but all the rest of the running backs on the Michigan State football team. The Spartans have to hang on to the football. They have to work on that prior to the game at Spartan Stadium in Week 2 against the Western Michigan Broncos, who almost pulled an upset on the road at the number 4 USC Trojans, but fell short. 49-31. The first 3 quarters of that game later on were actually very interesting, but the Trojans finally pulled away in the fourth quarter to prove that they were the better team.
Yeah, I think everyone expected SC to win, and most of those groups thought it was going to be a much more impressive win than was shown. I think it was probably a testament to a lot of people underestimating Western, thinking, okay, you lost a lot of players to the draft, and you lost your head coach. I think this is going to be, some people thought it was going to be a big blowout early and fast, but no, this is a team that still remembered what PJ Fleck taught him and whatnot. Use this influence, I guess, in a way to help them put up as much of a game as possible. But at the end of the day, I see, their talent and who they really were, that it showed through where it mattered and needed most. And they did what they had to do, and they got the win. But still, give credit to Western for playing them as close as they possibly did on the road in their environment for the first game of the year. And I think they can use this as a great learning tool to help them show, hey, we can compete with just about anybody who's on our schedule. And I will pay close attention to how they come into East Lansing this upcoming week. Something tells me that's not going to be as much of a gimme as we all thought before the season started.
Right, and I kind of thought when Western actually took like 3 leads against USC, that PJ Fleck must have left not only a great football program, but a great legacy in growing together as almost an elite football team, but also a force to be reckoned with, almost in the top 25, but sending a message to the top 25 as well, even to the top 5, USC number 4, for example. So, we transition to the Central Michigan Chippewas.
Touchdown, Central Michigan!
Who started out with a 13-0 lead, and then early in the third quarter, they committed a stupid roughing the punter penalty that let the Rhode Island Rams back into the game to make it interesting. The Rhode Island Rams ended up tying the game at 21. And that forced overtime. But Rhode Island had a chance to win it at the end of regulation. But it went into overtime anyway. Both teams exchanged field goals in the first quarter, and then the first overtime period, and then the second overtime period, CMU committed a stupid turnover, 2 high snaps, one of them over former Michigan Wolverine quarterback Shane Morris's head, and the Rams recovered. But here's a turnover here's what allowed Rhode Island to tie it up. Morris threw an interception deep in his own zone, and Rhode Island didn't waste too much time. Now back to the second overtime period. Rhode Island had a chance to win with just a field goal, and they missed it wide right. And CMU thus caught a break. And they got a second life. Right after they gave Rhode Island a second life. Rhode Island took a 27-24 lead with a field goal of their own when they could have won it then. But CMU's Devin Spalding, one of the running backs, punched it in just barely from 3 yards out to win it in the triple overtime period, 30-27. Now, this CMU was playing a bad Rhode Island team. Apologies for the distortion, but again, CMU was playing a bad Rhode Island team, and they let Rhode Island make it interesting when they should have booked it.
Yeah, if you're a Central fan, it must have been very infuriating to see this team play like this. While they forced 6 interceptions from the passing from the defense, they still also gave up almost 300 yards in total passing, and plus, not to mention those 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, which really put this game in the overtime to begin with. And that's something you just can't do. Like we talked about Michigan earlier, trying to have to learn that killer instinct. Looks like Central was going through its own finishing problems as well. If they needed not 1, not 2, but 3 overtimes to get through a Rhode Island team. Like I didn't even know Rhode Island had a college football team before now, so that should tell you something. If Central somehow is able to be that lackluster in this performance, then who knows what else these other teams coming up against in their schedule, what they're going to do against them in regards to effort, how they approach things, and quite frankly, whether or not they're going to get outplayed at almost every juncture of the game.
Right. Now, keep in mind, they have two much better teams coming up, both on the road at Kansas, the Jayhawks, and then at the Syracuse Orangemen. And Syracuse is dominant. In their first meeting back in 2015, 2014 rather, Syracuse dominated at Kelly Shorts, and then CMU went into Syracuse and made it interesting back in 2015. And they lost in overtime. They didn't play Syracuse at all in 2016, but Syracuse, the last three years prior to this year, are 2-0 against the Chippewas, and I still, and that's gonna, and we're gonna try to further analyze that matchup later on episode 281 next week. But for CMU's defense, on the bright side, they caught six interception passes thrown by Rhode Island. They almost made it 7. They had 2 chances to make it 7. They just couldn't catch the football. And then you got the Eastern Michigan Eagles beating the Charlotte 49ers 24-7. They were also playing a bad team. Ian Erickson, 2 touchdown runs. EMU opened the scoring with a pick 6. Charlotte answered right back. But since then, EMU's defense shut down the 49ers, and the offense did just enough from there, and the Eagles improved to 1-0.
If there's anything to take away from this game, that yes, it was quite disappointing in a lot of senses to watch Eastern's offense perform. At least their defense showed up and helped them out and bailed them out big time against a team like this. No matter what your opponent is, if your defense can show out for you, you're always going to take that as something to hold your head up high about after a game, no matter the result, almost.
Right. So that leads us to our college football in the Mitten quick picks segment. First off, the Western Michigan Broncos at the Michigan State Spartans at 3:30 on BTN. Ed, I'll let you pick first.
It's worth noting that as I'm looking, ESPN has this as Michigan State favorite by 8 points. I think those odds are a little bit too high, especially from what I saw from both teams this past weekend. So I think MSU will still win, but I think the score is going to be much closer. I think they either win by a field goal or a touchdown. So my pick is going to be 4.
What was the score again? It cut off.
28-24.
Oh, okay. So it's by 2 safeties, technically. I got MSU winning in overtime plus 33-30. This is going to be a really tense drama in East Lansing. Then you got the Cincinnati Bearcats at the Michigan Wolverines. Both teams are 1-0 going into that matchup. That kicks off at noon on ABC, as I mentioned before. Wilton Speight again named the starting quarterback through 2 pick sixes last Saturday, while Cincinnati beat Austin Peay, 26-14. I'm thinking Michigan will win 42-10. I think Wilton Speight will perform much better than that.
Yeah, I expect this to be a bounce back game for Speight. O'Connell gets his playing time, but that'll be after the game is more than well in hand. The defense will show out again, and final score is going to be Michigan 56, Cincinnati 14.
Oh, okay.
Holy jumping!
So we both pick a route. You picked up a wider route than me. Then you got the Central Michigan Chippewas at the Kansas Jayhawks at 4. I would say Kansas wins it 42-13 because CMU, 2 turnovers on 2 bad snaps from their center. Their center is awful. It doesn't matter which quarterback, Shane Morris or the other backup quarterback, can't remember his name, but their center needs a lot of work, by the way. But if you turn the ball over like that, for example, you keep turning the ball over like that, you make too many mistakes, and the Jayhawks will burn you. And I think that's.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's what I see in my crystal ball.
I see Kansas winning as well. Probably not as a bigger margin as you have it. My score prediction is going to be, let's go Kansas 35, Central 24.
Oh, 35-24 Kansas, huh? Picked it closer. Okay.
Yeah, I think Central going to beat 3 touchdowns, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. And then you got the Eastern Michigan Eagles at the Rutgers Scarlet Knights at 3:30 on BTN. Rutgers is a very terrible team. Eastern Michigan was playing a terrible team. They won 24-7. They're on the road, but they're playing in my view, an even worse team than Charlotte. And I'm picking Eastern Michigan to win 27-10. They're going to need Ian Erickson to step up again.
I could see either Rutgers pulling away late or Eastern keeping it close to win at the end. I'm going to go with my first option. Rutgers is going to play a bad game, but they'll still have enough to pull away late. So I'll say Rutgers 17, Eastern 9.
Oh, man. All right. So just a reminder to all you Eagle fans out there of Eastern Michigan and Ypsilanti, for example, you can, and those outside of the greater Detroit area, where Ypsilanti is located, you can stream online on the WEMU 89.1 FM mobile app or WEMU.org or on the TuneIn Radio app on the Eastern Michigan IMG Sports Network, on either the TuneIn Radio mobile app or TuneIn Radio or TuneIn.com. So that was pretty quick. Just a half hour in to this episode. Now let's transition to the Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
The NFL has announced its 53-man rosters, and it appears that the Lions have cut not only Brad Kaaya, their draft pick quarterback, their third-string quarterback, who was claimed then by the Carolina Panthers the day thereafter. They also cut running back Matt Asiata.
Are you kidding me with this?
Nobody expected the Lions to cut Matt Asiata, but Ed, I think you have at least a little bit of analysis on why they did that.
Not because they feel comfortable with the current quarterbacks, Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, even Zach Zinner and Dwayne Washington. Washington, with what he can bring possibly on the special teams return unit as well. Remember last preseason he returned a kickoff 95 yards for a touchdown. So he has that capability to break one off at any given moment. So you couldn't afford to lose that if you're Detroit's point of view. So that's why he maintained the spot. And Zach Zinner, I think he proved not just last year but the year before he can run well behind any line, and he'll definitely should be able to run even better behind this line. So there's always that. And with Theo and Amir more than likely being your 1 and 2 backs no matter what, I think it's just was not going to be enough room for Matt Asiata to have a part on this team. So hence him not making the final cut.
Yeah, it's just a very tough decision for the coaching staff, including Jim Caldwell, to make that decision prior to the official the making of the official 53-man roster for the Lions as they head into Ford Field against the Arizona Cardinals this Sunday, September 10th at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. And that's what we're going to preview right now. In Week 1 of the NFL 2017 regular season, we have an injury report according to ESPN. For Detroit, Ziggy Ansah, questionable, but he's actually ready. He was expected to be ready for Week 1. And then you got Corey Robinson, also removed from the PUP list. They were both removed from the PUP list. He's listed as questionable. And then Taylor Decker, of course, out until like December 10th, as I memorized. Out 4 to 6 months. As of earlier this calendar year. And then for the Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver Aaron Dobson on the injured reserve, Ed Stinson at defensive tackle on the injured reserve, and finally TJ Logan, the running back, on the injured reserve. Now, the matchup predictor picks Detroit to win 59.4% to 40.3%. The over-under is 48. The Cardinals are a 1.5 point favorite in the spread. And the Lions are a 1.5 point underdog. Got some analysis, Ed?
It's a 1.5 Vegas favorite for Arizona, despite what you just listed. Should probably tell you something that maybe Vegas knows something we don't. I think from what we can tell, the defense is not going to be that good this year. The pass rush is not going to be effective enough against the quarterback, who's going to allow for enough protection where plays going to be made and scores are going to be scored. Granted, they don't have Aaron Dobson or TJ Logan, but they still have Larry Fitzgerald. And Larry Fitzgerald is one of the top wideouts in the whole league. And from what I can tell, from what I saw in the preseason, the secondary is going to have a big trouble with Larry Fitz on their hands. So I expect them to get his production and get his yards, maybe a touchdown or two. As for the Lions, they'll do what they need to do, but in terms of their defense not being a help for them, I think I can see them starting out slow, no matter how they try to make it close late. It just won't be enough. So I think Arizona will win either by a 1-point margin or by a field goal margin, but I picked Arizona to win a close one.
I'm going to predict the Cardinals to win 34-20. Like you pointed out, the Lions' defense isn't that good, especially when their defensive line is pretty banged up. Granted, they still have Darius Slay and Glover Quinn, but that's definitely not enough. They're missing a lot of people. Brandon Copeland, Kerry Hyder, Jordan Hill. The list may go on, but it's this is yet another problem that the Lions have had for years in our lifetime. So 34-20 is my prediction. The Cardinals will win. Now, let's transition from football to baseball.
That one is long gone.
Well, Ed, Justin Verlander is gone from the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers have actually traded Verlander to the Houston Astros for 3 top prospects. The Houston Astros' number 3 prospect, right-handed pitcher Franklin Perez at age 19, their 11th ranked prospect catcher Jake Rogers, and their number 9 prospect outfielder Daz Cameron. Perez is 19 years old. Rogers is 22, and Cameron is 20. Now keep in mind, Jake Rogers is ranked 8th in all prospect catchers in MILB, which is even better. So that was one hell of a trade that the Tigers pulled off. But before that, they traded Justin Upton, one of their star outfielders, to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim for prospect right-handed pitcher Grayson Long. Now, back to the Verlander trade. Anthony Fenech, of all people, one of the Tigers' analyst beat writers from the Detroit Free Press, was actually the first to jump on it right after Chris McCosky of the Detroit News was tweeting that the Verlander deal was nixed by Verlander himself because of his no-trade clause. But Anthony Fenech won that report hands down. Verlander actually waived his no-trade clause. He was tired of losing in Detroit. We can tell, everybody can tell, Verlander wanted to play for a real winning team, and that would be the Houston Astros, of course, evidently, the best team in the American League.
It was either that or the Cubs, or I'm pretty sure either that or the Cubs or the Dodgers. Any one of those teams would have been his preferred choice.
They're both in the National League.
Yeah, but, but still, I think those two teams are high on his list, just of what they could bring with him on the roster. But in terms of what they got in return, I think that's probably why they went with Houston, because that seemed to be the most they could get in return compared to what, say, LA or Chicago.
Yeah, and the Tigers got an awesome prospect package in return.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
The top 11 only in Houston, but one of them being ranked among all prospect catchers in MILB, number 8.
Yeah, so eventually when he comes of age and it's time to make his journey to the main roster with the major leagues, while the impact may not be immediate, eventually you could see him being a big star for the team. So that's what they're banking on. Otherwise, they would not have made this deal.
Yeah. So let's get back to the reporting on the Verlander trade. Jeff Moss detected all this Fenech and McCosky stuff, and he even detected Lynn Henning's tweets too. He screenshot everything, and the screenshots say that according to Chris McCosky, I've been told that the Verlander deal is off. Apparently, he didn't waive the no-trade clause. Again, Verlander deal has been nixed. Then the Verlander deal was nixed either because he vetoed it or because the Astros got cold feet and pulled back part of their offer. Not clear.
Ah, shut up, you idiot. What? Oh.
None of this was true, actually. The Tigers get, and then he tweeted, the Tigers get back with a hyphen in between, not a space, a hyphen. The Tigers' get back for Verlander was believed to include Franklin Perez, Daz Cameron, and possibly Jake Rogers. At least he got those 3 players all right, but the rest of the tweet said, again, the deal is off. That was at 8:27 p.m. on August 31st of this year. That was 3.5 hours, evidently 3.5 hours before the trade actually happened. McCosky jumped the gun. I don't know. I don't even know who told Chris McCosky that, but either that or Chris McCosky must have made it up, because he wanted Justin Verlander to stay, and he wasn't the only one. Lynn Henning apparently I don't even know Lynn Henning was trying to say. He tweeted, "Oh, Justin Verlander, turning this down won't do any of the parties any good. Justin Verlander has 30 minutes to reconsider, needs to. Doubt anyone's counseling him other than himself, but this is not judgment Verlander is going to later appreciate. Big off-season opportunity for Verlander. Never ever believed he'd turn that down, not in 1 zillion years. Verlander is 34, not a lot of Octobers left in his pitching life. That he's KOing this one is frankly incomprehensible." Now, first off, Lynn Henning believes that Verlander actually turned the trade down with his no-trade clause, just about like Chris McCosky believed. But Lynn Henning only followed Chris McCosky's tweets. And then on the fifth and final tweet, Lynn Henning downgrades Justin Verlander by saying that by trying to say that Justin Verlander is over the hill. But like he pointed out, Verlander is 34. Pointed that out accurately, at least. But the main thing that he got wrong is Verlander is over the hill. He's not. Verlander's still got plenty left in the tank.
And shame on Lynn Henning for trying to shame Verlander for using a clause that, to be quite honest, Verlander more than earned with his play over the years. So why wouldn't he try to contemplate using his option in that sense? So for him to try and lambaste him for that was quite silly and childish, in my opinion. As for McCosky, it's one thing to have a screw up and at least say, hey, own up to it and leave the evidence on. But then to try to delete evidence of that screw up by deleting tweets that was affirming your stance on things just proves a very weak point, proves yourself to be very weak about how you go about your job. So not so much surprised to see him getting criticized all over social media, whether it be the MLB networks or right here locally with Jeff Moss and whatnot. So it's quite noteworthy to note that the freak, it wasn't so much that Fenech had a pulse on such things, it was because he was used as a vessel by the Tigers to get back at the news by saying, hey, you know what, we're just going to leak this to your competition, see how that feels for you, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, yeah. That was right before Anthony Fenech's tweet. The Tigers have traded Justin Verlander to the Astros, I'm told. And Fenech had been nowhere on the Verlander trade story, but obviously Fenech actually got that right. And then just after,
it was probably said to him that no matter what, the trade was going down, so he was given the okay to make that tweet.
Oh yeah, definitely. Give Fenech 100% credit, even though he has like a criminal record or something like that, or a DUI record, but or both. He still Fenech still does his job very well, if not perfect. I have to admit that too. The way I've seen him write his articles, like the last 2 or 3 years, or 4, Fenech's got a little bit of a passion, believe it or not. But then after that, Lynn Henning tweeted, Chris McCosky's reporting last night through a back-and-forth 11 p.m. to midnight weave was great professionalism and journalism. No, it wasn't.
Shut up, you.
No, it wasn't. If it was great professionalism, he wouldn't be telling people who were criticizing him to shut the F up.
Yeah, he tweeted, it was on, then off, then on. It works like that sometimes. Read the entire timeline or shut the F up.
Right, yeah, that's good professionalism, huh, man?
He quoted his own tweet that said, Twitter, man, I gave you the blow-by-blow on Verlander almost in real time, and you focus on the one tweet from when the deal was off?
It shows what such thin skin he has.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Yeah, and keep in mind, Chris McCosky deleted those Verlander deal with Nick's tweets from Twitter, but Jeff Moss evidently screenshot those tweets just in time. Now, the Tigers ate $16 million in that trade involving Verlander and Franklin Perez and Jake Rogers and Daz Cameron. Jeff Moss wanted them to eat $15 million, and they ate $16 million. That's a 1-point upgrade in that trade. And Moss wanted Franklin Perez for Verlander, and he got him.
Yep.
Man. Jeff Moss has got a brain.
Definitely one more so than Brad Ausmus or Al Avila, apparently.
Yep. And Al Avila, as stupid of a GM as he is, he actually made the right trade involving Verlander. So with the fire sale now done, although we wanted all other players traded as well, we still have Ian Kinsler, the corpse of Victor Martinez, the corpse of Miguel Cabrera. We also have Nick Castellanos and James McCann. We already got rid of Alex Avila and Justin Wilson and J.D. Martinez back in July.
By the way, the same J.D. Martinez who hit 4 home runs tonight.
Yeah, that's true. I heard that earlier before we went on the air. That's impressive.
18th player in MLB history to do that.
Oh, yeah. Man, the Tigers were missing out on that. Boy, oh boy. But speaking of Victor Martinez, he was shut down for the rest of the season with heartbeat issues. He's expected to have heart surgery, but he's expected to be ready for spring training in Lakeland next year, according to MLB.com's Jason Beck, Tigers beat writer. And there's no report that Victor Martinez is ready to retire when he should. And that tells you that Victor Martinez is going to try and play out the last season in his contract before he even considers retiring from baseball.
Yeah, if it were me, I would advise that he just hang it up now and avoid the risk. But hey, it's his decision on what he wants to do.
Yep. Good luck, Victor, on that one. And I almost forgot, Jordan Zimmerman is still on the team. Of course, nobody wanted him anyway, because he wasn't 100%. Because he is going to see a specialist for his re-aggravated neck injury. Now, Jason Beck reported that he was healthy, but when he was struggling, but he actually wasn't healthy when he was awful starting last year. Beck wrote, quote, Zimmerman was expected to receive 2 nerve block injections last offseason, but he never received the second. He felt good enough after the first that he held off on the second, but he might take it now. If he does, he would have to wait 3 to 5 days before throwing again, unquote. So there's your information from Jason Beck, aside from the one incorrect statement that Zimmerman was healthy. He wasn't. Again, he wasn't. So it's getting near the end of the season. We are now on the last month of the MLB regular season. And Jordan Zimmerman, we either have to hope to God that he's 100% when he returns a little bit later this month, or we have to hope that he gets shut down for the rest of the season just so the Tigers make sure that he's 100%.
I would vote for Operation Shutdown because this is a lost cause of the season. They're not making the playoffs. They're not getting any spots. So what?
Yeah, you're cutting off.
Even if he's too much damage goods at this point anyway, I would still shut him down to preserve him as much as possible for next year.
Definitely, yeah. Absolutely. Better safe than sorry. And we have now come to the segment called 5 Questions. Are you ready, Ed?
Absolutely, Terrence. Go ahead and let him rip.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. Should Chris McCosky be fired from the Detroit News for misreporting the Verlander trade? And then being unprofessional on Twitter, I may add.
And they made that to get him fired was, in my opinion, would be done for his unprofessionalism of how he acted on Twitter more so than his reporting. At the very least, he should be reprimanded for his actions, not only getting it wrong, trying to publicly erase the knowing of getting it wrong, and then his remarks afterwards. He should have at least suspended, in my view, below 5. I doubt if anything will happen to him. Should he be reprimanded? Yes. But will it happen? I think not.
Next question.
I'd have to agree. Question number 2. How long should Ian Kinsler stay in Detroit with the Tigers? Because we almost missed an article that Kinsler is not opposed to staying with the rebuilding Tigers. He's trying to help out the younger players who were called up, including Jairo Laporte, Candelario, all those other guys who've been dying to have a shot in the major leagues, which they did against Kansas City earlier today in a 7-6 loss. But
it's nice to hear, but at the end of the day, if it's up as to whether or not he's still up.
You remember Ian Kinsler not only bashing Angel Hernandez, but about a year or two ago, he made some very discriminatory comments that almost destroyed the World Baseball Classic. And he definitely went way out of line with them. He also likes to criticize umpires, too.
He may have a bit of an attitude problem in sports, but he's still a very productive and good player at this stage in his career.
Yeah, he's been really struggling offensively this year.
I will be too.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Question number 3. Should Jordan Zimmerman be shut down for the rest of the season? I'd say yes.
In my opinion, yes. We already answered pretty much, so to reiterate, yes, he should.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, better safe than sorry, just like Victor Martinez, who should hang it up.
Next question.
Question number 4. Do the Tigers have enough money to sign free agents in the upcoming MLB offseason? Got a tweet from Ryan Schuling, the host of the Schuling Report on the Team 92.1 FM. Yesterday, that watching the zombie Tigers is not exactly a Sunday well spent. Don't mind the youth movement, but need placeholding free agents in 2018 to avoid 2003. I would say they won't have enough money to do so anyway. Besides, they have to tank to make Chris Ilitch sell the team, because Chris Ilitch is still losing money. I just have a gut feeling that in my crystal ball, Chris Ilitch won't have enough money for Al Avila to sign too many free agents.
Whether that's a choice or not, That seems to be the likely conclusion. So, if anything, if it comes down to it, I'd rather they go through this rock bottom phase before rising up again. So, tank is all as much as you want, as long as it forces the inevitable sale by Chris Silvers at the end of the day. I'm all for it.
Oh, definitely, me too. And Buck Gino pointed out, one of my other co-hosts tweeted that he sees the Tigers being a contender again in 2021, the year 2021.
I can see that's a possibility because that'll be by now when the picture up and up.
Yeah, cutting off again. Apologies for technical difficulties, but yeah, and Buck Gino also equivalently sees the team extending Brad Ausmus for 3 years, which is equivalent.
That would I really hate to see. There's just no point bringing him back now. There really is no point bringing him back.
The bonus question would be, does Brad Ausmus even want that extension? Because, again, we pointed out Brad Ausmus may have to resign because he can't take it anymore. So we'll have to see what happens.
Next question.
If they have a future enough finish where they lose all but five games, he'll be gone next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, question number 5, does Victor Martinez, speaking of whom, actually have enough left in the tank to play in the 2018 season? No, I say.
You may be right. Won't come to that. Still has not to that realization yet that it's over for him, so he's going to give it at least one more go.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, to Victor Martinez, good luck on that one. And now one segment left. What's your grade?
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
The Justin Verlander trade, I grade it an A.
I have to give it an A as well. Still cautious as to see what the eventual return concerns for both teams and both squads involved. They got what they needed, so I'll give it an A.
Oh, yeah. Like I pointed out last weekend, both teams won that trade. And then the Justin Upton trade, I would grade it at least a B+, if not an A.
And even B is fine, because we don't know what, this is a more unknown than what the prospects we will be getting back in the Houston deal. So that's the only reason why this grade isn't higher.
Right. And let me add an extra one and throw a curveball to you, Ed. The Lions cutting Matt Asiata. What do you grade that?
It's a C+ because it's middle of the road. It wasn't a move that was going to their unit at the running back core, and a dramatic enough move that might help or hamper their playoff chances for the rest of the year. It's the middle of the road type of move, and probably have a little effect on his own. So it's not so they handled it. How
I would give that a mid-range C.
Yeah, that's my grade of a C+.
Mm-hmm. Mid-range C. The Lions, I still think, could have used Matt Asiata, but it was a tough decision to make. Granted, we'll have to.
I don't think it's going to matter either way, so that's why I didn't feel it was worthy of a high grade at all.
Yeah. It had to come with either expectation or doubt or both. So that's our What's Your Grade segment. So for our audience, if they had grades for each event, post them in the comment bank below this episode. Please don't go out of line. 5-question segment as well to our entire audience. If you want to answer those 5 questions, just replay the segment portion of this episode and answer them the best you can without going out of line. So that's episode 80 of the Week in Review, the Labor Day special on the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker. Before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast organization is boosting its posts of each episode from Spreaker on its Facebook page and searching for local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, send our Facebook page a message. Ed, thanks again. We'll talk next week on episode 281.
No problem, Taylor. Looking forward to it already.
Absolutely. So, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips and Ed Smith at EdSmith313. Like and share the Michigan Sports Truth Facebook page and join its Facebook group. We'll talk to you next week on episode 281 of the Week in Review. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.